Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive,
What up, though? How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? I was swimming in the Caribbean. What up, Maddie? Yeah, I mean, I tend to like remakes, covers, all that shit, mashups, but like some of them are really stand out, and I think that one was. Um, One of the things uh about remakes, covers, that kind of stuff is how like I find some songwriters are very talented, but their performance leaves me wanting. Like I'm a fan of some of the songs that Bruce Springsteen writes. I just don't particularly like when Bruce Springsteen performs them. There are covers of his songs that I like very much. What up, Magic City? Is this an M thing? We got Maddie, we got Magic City. Maybe get Mix Maddie B in here. So I was on Stonercast on Saturday. That was a good time. Finally got to hang out with James from the internet, which is something that I'd wanted to do on a previous Stonercast, but technical issues. But now, like, I have no problem getting my OBS and Discord to work together properly every time, all the time. He says right before he has an interview with someone in which he's going to be using Discord. Genius. I'm a genius. So we're going to have Homozygote on a little bit later. This is going to be in the format of the conversations I've had with people around like my 50th anniversary and the one weekend stream I did where I went hard. I did like 12 hours and 10 interviews. More in that format. We're going to talk about streaming. We're going to talk about Twitch. We're going to talk about that kind of stuff. And just generally, have a good time. And if you haven't seen Homozygote before, then, this is your opportunity to get to know them and, potentially tune into their show. Which they do a few different things, and I'm not going to spoil it because, why would I do that? So, in the meantime, we're going to hang out for like another 20 minutes. They are a working science type person, so there's always a possibility that they could be late, but fingers crossed that will not be the case. News roundup. Brazil did a January 6th, and they sent in the military who arrested everybody and did a much better job of handling that type of thing than we did. So good on Lula for that one. Damar Hamlin, if you know Damar Hamlin, the football player, had the heart attack on the field, has been released from the hospital and is on his way home, back to Buffalo. He was in Cincinnati, and he's on his way back to Buffalo. So that's cool. Like, even if you don't like football and all that, it's nice that he was able to make that recovery. I think that's it. Elon's still screwing up Twitter and that discourse that Bosch popped off and started off appears to have run its course. So there's nothing Nothing going on with that. Bolsonaro's in the hospital. With abdominal pain. Could be real, could be legitimate. I think he's been in the hospital for that before, and the abdominal issues are the kind of thing that can come back again and again. Once you start getting them, kind of thing, and like that. Also, could be bullshit, and could be just him putting himself in a situation to make it more difficult to deport his ass back to Brazil. We shall see how that develops. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. That's a dumbass thing to be trending, and I'm not even going to comment on it. Why is Matt Walsh trending? Matt Walsh is still a dumbass, so that's why he's trending. Like that. Do 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 do. So yeah, I think that's the news roundup. All the news that you need to know. Any AI news? Do 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 do. Everybody's always down. All right, they're still teaching cars how to drive. Still fucking up. I'm scrolling Twitter, which is why I'm not doing it on stream. Because usually, like my Twitter is fairly well curated to where like I don't run into things that I can't share on stream just because of the nature of my Twitter, right? Like I'm on top of that shit. However, one of the people I follow felt the need to post a picture of their scrotum and butthole on street or on the timeline. So yeah, still got to be careful. Oh, here's a delightful little thing. I don't think it has any sound. Little robot action. Right? Let me fix my video capture. So there I am. Boston Dynamics leading the way. Any day they're going to take our jobs. What up, Reading Rap? So yeah, I'm still working on that. I believe in you, little buddy. I believe in you. You good effort. Good effort. Not gonna lie, we've all seen people a little too intoxicated pull that same move. So let's not judge the robot for having a bad time. What else we got? Oh, in conjunction with something that we talked about with I want to say it was Corey Campbell, the PNAS news, right? PNAS. Watch yourself. Corey's super cool. An AI model analyzing MRI scans of human brains could help with early identification. One more time with feeling. An AI model analyzing MRI scans of human brains could help with early identification of people at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by more precisely estimating brain age and mapping brain aging at the individual level. It is dope. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I understand what the fuck I'm looking at here. But it looks impressive, right? Like, I'm sure someone much much more in tune with brain science could tell me what all this means, but I just like the idea of it. And this is the thing is with the with the whole AI is not an issue, dude. I have a degree in biology and I don't understand what I'm looking at. That's some PhD level shit. True. Like, I'm a smart dude. Like, I pick up shit like, oh, I get that makes sense. And then it's like, what? But yeah, so in the field of in the fields of biology and science and all that, I feel like because of the volume of stuff, right? To simplify it as succinctly as possible, because of the volume of stuff and the stuff that needs to be done, AI is going to be nothing but a net positive, here, this is in direct response to what Corey was talking about. It's an opinion piece. Always look for the word opinion, and always read for opinion words, even if it doesn't say opinion. There have been big advances in protein fold prediction, but biochemists have more work to do. We need to understand the protein folding process, not just protein ultimate folds. And that makes sense, right? Like, it is good to understand, how the folds and how they end up and everything else, but to get to the why, it's not enough to understand what something does, but it is strongly indicated to understand why a thing does what it does, to understand why other things do what they do, and also like how you can extrapolate that to maybe figuring out like the origins of all the things, right? Because at some point in time, what's up, James Frio? Welcome. At some point in time, way in the long ago, there was just a pool of gunk, and that gunk eventually became amino acids and proteins and did stuff and became life. What's up, Arun? So, like, to understand where we come from, we have to understand how those things happen, right? Because, there's a certain amount of faith, right? Like, in science is not religion, and don't play that card, but there's a certain amount of faith you have to have that if you don't understand what the fuck you're looking at, that what they tell you is how the thing works, right? And with that concept of like the earliest forms of life basically spontaneously generating, it would be better if they could demonstrate that in a step-by-step way to overcome the people who are inevitably going to hit you off with the, well, you don't know, it's just a theory nonsense, right? Like, if you can demonstrate that shit. Talking with a friend of the show and person into whom I injected brain poison. Do I know? What did you do? What have you done, Arun? What have you done? What have you done? Are you talking about me? Because Arun has always hit me. Oh, you showed Marcus the. Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Arun is a brave soul, and we appreciate. Oh, this is cool. We appreciate Arun out there still fighting the good fight against, let's say, less than good faith actors. Oh, it's tough being Arun, I tell you that. Well, let me show you what's cool, and I will put this in the Discord. It's a unsavory figures. That's a good one. It's a list of generative AIs, which I think is pretty cool. So we can seek out some of these things and see if we can use them. Because actually using stuff is it has a certain value to it, right? Speaking of, I used Midjourney, right? And Midjourney produces impressive results. Whatever you feel about AI art versus art and all the whole thing, the visual results produced by Midjourney are impressive. Stable Diffusion gave me nothing but like hot garbage. Like there are some pictures that are allegedly made with Stable Diffusion, which it could be me. Maybe I was using it wrong, but it was not. It was not a good time. I expected. I had high hopes, and it and it failed at absolutely every level. Like I tried to be generous with it, and it just is no good. No good. I am so. Again, I will hold that L if I'm wrong, but it really just I didn't go with what it said, but I used the exact same prompts that I prompted into Midjourney and got much worse results off jump. So no. Not for me, dog. Not for me. But again, maybe that's me, so on and so forth. Let me throw that into the Discord because I don't want to lose this one. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things going on that are just they're not as well known. Like Midjourney, and this is the thing, like because Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, because they ended up being a direct threat to a vocal group, they became the most well known, right? But I'm looking at 12 different text to image generative AIs, and I've only heard of 3 of them. So that in and of itself is interesting. Text to video. Ooh. Links from stream. And if you're not part of the Discord, why aren't you part of the Discord? In the waiting room. Yeah. And look at that. Nightbot, right on time. Oh, no. Read and Rap hit it off. I should just make you a mod, Read and Rap. But you're not here often enough because you don't love me like you love like Levelhead and shit. Which is fine. This isn't a MILF zone, so. Because we can't wanna get it. I just learned about your stream, dude. Bruh. Look, Kellyanne. Kellyanne's been hanging out with like Cuomo, right? Like that, and that's a whole thing I didn't need to know existed. What up, Environmental Frog? Welcome. Okay, I hate this on its face. And it's from the World Economic. I don't know what they're doing. They were just seen together out in the world, and I don't need to know. Okay, from... Yeah. I recently saw a thing where they had a like a baby buggy, like I can't remember the name. You put your baby in it and you push him along. But it's like hands free and like guides itself, and it's like stroller. Thank you. Like no one asked for this. No one asked for the hands free, baby stroller. Like it doesn't happen. But like they made a big thing out of it, and now like this that no one needs. Yeah. I hope so, Environmental Frog. I hope so. Like, because again, like the problem with electric cars is still where you're getting the electricity from. Like, I'm not against electric cars in spite of many of the issues that are related to electric cars. I'm not necessarily against them as a thing, but like, where do you get your like? This is nice. You got a solar panel. What up, Alt Miss Frizzle? You got solar panel, and allegedly the solar panel is sufficient to power the charging station. But let's go back here, right? This doesn't charge your car while it's parked, right? This is a free hanging cord. You charge your car while it's parked. I could replace this entire complicated robot with a light here indicating, like, or we'll go fancy, right? And just throw up a 1080p that says, like, the name of the person who is, reserve this spot, and then just put the fucking charger on the wall with a long enough cord to stretch to the charge port, and we don't need this goddamn robot, right? Because still, like, okay, it tells me via an app that my car is charged. I'm still going to have to unplug it. The robot cannot charge the fucking car. Yes, I am talking to Homozygote. I am waiting for them to join the VC. They are not in there yet. But yeah, no, like this is dumb. This is Hyperloop, right? This is Hyperloop thinking, right? Why overcomplicate this? Why do I need a stroller that is hands-free? Why do I need this robot to sit behind my car and do this thing when I can just literally mount it on the wall? Every complexity that you add to the situation, it increases cost and increases wear and tear and breakdown. Like, there's no reason to do this, right? Or if you're concerned about like the cord doing that, then just do a little thing. Name calling. Because you have a chauffeur to plug in your robot. I'm fascinated. What is name calling? Robot Automod considers robot level 3 name calling. Holy shit. Oh, bruh. Yeah, so this is dumb. This is just another dumb, unnecessary complexity. Blah, 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 blah. How else can we cut emissions from transport? One, use more trains and things like that. Shout out Gremlo. Homozygote is in the spot. Let me do the things. Let me do the things. I move him to interview. I click on interview myself. I join. I say, check, check, check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you going to be using a camera?
Yeah, give me just a second. Discord is not cooperating. All right, there we go. I should probably do one of these. There we go.
I'm just going to make an adjustment. How you doing? You look a little agitated.
Oh, I'm just tired.
Oh, okay.
I have the sleep cycle of a fucking vampire, so it that does not help.
Well, I'm glad you made the time to join me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. It's always good to interact with the not insane parts of Twitch. So I'm when I see opportunities to do that, it's like, well, okay, I'll think about it and go over it in my head a couple of times. It's like, yeah, okay, this is probably good. I'll do this.
So I feel like I have a lot more people in my audience today that are from your audience. So for those of them who are not, you want to introduce yourself, tell them where to find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. As you could probably tell from the title of the stream, my online handle is Homozygote. My government name is Marcus. You can use whichever one makes you the happiest. You can find me twitch.tv/Homozygote. You can follow the spelling in the title. That'll do it just fine for you. My handle's the same on Twitter, just with an underscore added at the end. I have not made the migration to Mastodon or any of these other Twitter replacements yet, and probably won't for a while. So those are really the two most active places you can find me. I have a Discord attached to my stream where I am very much present. But yeah, those are really the three places that you can find me. What I do is really a variety of things these days, but mostly here to try and get folks to take COVID seriously. I'm a science flavored streamer. I do talk a lot about the pandemic. It's very topical right now, but certainly other issues with respect to academia, science, politics and the intersection of all three of those things. We've done a lot of coverage on stuff like the recent graduate student strike at the University of California, the 10 school-wide system. Currently, I'll probably wind up talking about the New York City nurses strike tomorrow, among other things. So I do kind of have an increasing variety of content. So it's not just COVID doom and gloom all the time like it used to be, which is good and bad. It's nice to be able to like talk about things that are not imminently going to kill people. That's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So now that's a very brief summary of what I'm up to. But obviously, as I'm sure you've seen Globus, there are definitely moments where we kind of go off the rails and look at conspiracy content and figure out what all is happening in the brains of those with advanced rot. So that's another pastime of the stream, is staring into the abyss of conspiracy theory and see what looks back.
And you're a PhD candidate in.
Oh yeah, I literally forgot that part of my intro. Yeah, I see. This is how little I'm like talking about myself and plugging myself, dude. I'm so bad at this. Yeah, I'm a fourth year PhD candidate in cellular and molecular biology. My bachelor's and my master's are in microbiology. So those are my qualifications, so to speak. My dissertation work is actually in neuroscience, and my published research is in cancer biology. So I kind of have like three separate domains of expertise, as the academics would call them. But I'm pretty knowledgeable in those three subjects, and beyond that, I do have bits and pieces of knowledge elsewhere, especially as it pertains to why race science is bad. That's a very increasingly important issue within biology. So I'm trying to sort of take up that mantle along with some of the other ones to push back against that when I see it.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, especially as we get better in our understanding of like DNA and how it works, how it's spread across the world, all that kind of stuff, that kind of anti-race science, or that race science people are going to show up more and more, and that kind of content is going to still be necessary, unfortunately, for the time being.
Yeah, no, the race scientists are surprisingly, I guess, profound when it comes to their longevity in society. There's a whole slew of content I'm going to go over on stream eventually, but this goes back to World War I era, Nazis setting up foundations that actually fund this kind of work and still continue to do so today. There's a lot of hogs on Twitter that people would really mistake for your garden variety right winger, but when you dig a little bit deeper into their past, you kind of realize that they actually have thousands and thousands of dollars of funding from a right wing Nazi source, the Pioneer Fund. So it's a situation where there are definitely people who are still being paid to do this very day, to create a veneer of science around racism. So it is only of increased importance that people understand what they're doing and understand their talking points and push back, rather than let them continue unabated, because it's really getting to the point where, of all the mass shooters that pop up in this country, they're starting to literally cite race science in their manifestos like it's a book report. So, when it gets to that point, there needs to be academics actually pushing back. And that's, again, why I'm trying to do what I can and spread the word that these people need to actually be spoken out against in a public facing way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of subtleties that tend to get past the normies. We who have been online, we are more attuned to these things, but those subtleties definitely slide by. So having that mindset gives, I think, your audience and other people, like, you need to be aware of these things, like with how subtle QAnon was to some people with the Save Our Children and things like that. You need to make sure that when you hear these words, you're prepared to like edge those people back away from the craziness.
Yeah, well, and what's, I think, really underlooked is this almost like intersectionality of brain rot. You're gonna absolutely start to see, QAnon flavors and varieties start to mix with race science, and it's going to become, what most people would perceive to be kind of this jumbled word salad. But when it starts getting packaged correctly, when it starts getting packaged in a way, like you said, that's very subtle and kind of inoculates people with this exact combination of brain rot, you can start to see people like latch on to these very racist, biologically essentialist narratives, and that's why anytime I really see any form of invoking biological essentialism, whether it's from people in chat or Discord or elsewhere, I'm usually the first one to just be like, no, like we have to reject that when we see it, even if we're not actually talking about race science, even if we're talking about something else, because turning to biology as a default reason for why somebody did this, or your grandpa slapped your mother when she was 2. Like, this is not all about biology. Like, life is not always able to be reduced down to this gene's turned on, this pathway does this, somebody took this drug. There are a lot of situations that can be, but most of those are very much like medically flavored, like somebody's acutely sick, somebody's chronically sick, and it doesn't really involve like the social context of things. So, right. I'm really seeing this like unholy mixture of conspiracy theory, biology, kind of come into more socially flavored and politically flavored contexts. And that's the space that needs to be occupied by academics to actually be like, no, this is not what's going on. Let's back off the racism train here for just a second, and let's actually look at some more systemic causes or more readily apparent individual reasons for why insert thing here is happening. So it's a trend that I'm really noticing, is that people continuously go straight to biology for a lot of things, and that's not always the best course of action.
And I think that like people like yourself, Corey Campbell, Greg, peer review, your ability to take, because a lot of the stuff you're talking about is incredibly complex. Obviously, you went to school for many years and have to understand a lot of high-minded concepts. Your abilities to simplify without dumbing down, I think, is an asset that we need, especially for those of us who would qualify ourselves as being on the left. We need to have that type of communication happening.
Yeah, and that actually goes back to what I say a lot about folks on the left, broadly speaking. Not any particular subsect of leftists, but there's definitely a lot of almost like a knee-jerk rejection of science, and I think you can kind of in a way you can blame Hassan for that a little bit, just because he has a very knee-jerk like, oh, you're just a STEM lord, you're upset because I said a word wrong, when a lot of the time the faux pas that he commits wind up actually again spreading in a similar manner to people who consume his content. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like we have to kind of take a very informational ethics kind of approach to like how we are communicating on the political left. We actually have to make sure that the things we are saying are grounded in available data, facts, reality, some sort of good representation of how things materially are. And in a more purely political conversation, right, that's easier for us to do, right? We're usually pretty grounded in looking through things from an economic lens. We can, talk about the importance of identity and how people's economic livelihoods are impacted or threatened. And we can talk about these things kind of in relation to each other. But there's kind of this third, at least for now, aspect that we actually need to incorporate science into this too, because there are very specific prescriptions for individual behavior, systemic change, and public policy that science does have. And that's going to only be more important as time goes on, right? We're going to have climate change to reckon with. We still have COVID to reckon with. We will probably have more pandemics too. And we actually have to make sure that science does not go unaccounted for in the political left. And going back to what you said, right, that ability to try and speak leftist or speak the language of whoever you're communicating to as a scientist. I'm not sure where I necessarily got any chops to do that. I don't know if this is just something that I've gotten used to because I've had to have many of these conversations with family. I think really for me that's probably how I have practiced the skill. It's been practice. Right when COVID started, I've had many conversations that are very similar to what I've done on stream with my family, right? That's gotten me in the habit of doing this, at least on a weekly basis, if not more often. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity for more scientists and academics to come on board with the notion that you described, right? That, fomenting of communication to people who are friendly to science, people who are on the political left, and even to, the modern day Democratic Party. There are definitely a lot of people who are going to be worth talking to, and you have to have the skills to do that. And it's something that does not get included in our formal training, which is incredibly disappointing and needs to be augmented to graduate student training. I had a singular science communication class taught by two people who didn't have any grad students and had to justify the fact that they were getting paid by their university to be teachers. And so this is the class they got stuck with, right? They weren't passionate about it. They weren't really particularly good at it, if I'm really, here to talk some shit. But like, it was one of those deals where it was the blind leading the blind. And the only thing we ever did was learn how to rewrite our own research in 10 different formats. Like, that doesn't help me talk to somebody with no training. That doesn't help me talk to my parents. That doesn't help me talk to somebody who's vaccine hesitant or concerned that the climate might be putting them more at risk for their house to be flooded, or they're going to lose everything in a wildfire because they're living in a particularly susceptible area to the effects of climate change and how that might increase the frequency of fires. Like, there's a whole laundry list of things that need to be talked about, and we need to actually be training people that are competent to talk about these things across pretty much every discipline of science. Because again, things are only going to get worse, I think, in the future, as far as the critical global problems are concerned, and we need scientists to help kind of lead the charge along with and as part of the political left.
And there was something that I touched on with Professor Q the other day, was how, like, in my humble opinion, I feel we need more, like, cross-disciplinary, kind of collaboration and communication. Is like the amount of, like, the whole concept of the STEM Lord comes from the fact that they don't have enough, like, sociology in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably an understatement. If we're being honest, the concept, I mean, if we're talking more about, the academic understanding of that word, parentheses, pejorative, like, you can, there's kind of two uses of that word, and we're talking definitely about the pejorative use of it, which I do throw out a lot. But the reason why there's even a pejorative use in the first place is because, not only are they devoid of any sort of, cross-disciplinary training or curriculum when it comes to, the humanities, broadly speaking, but also just the training that they do have for whatever flavor of STEM thing that they're doing doesn't involve talking to people. It doesn't involve being part of their communities, and that's something that I really think goes undervalued. Is a lot of high school students in the United States, I'll use them as an example, right? In order to graduate, they have to have community service hours. Like, they had to have gone out into the world, at least for a little bit, to sort of justify the fact that taxpayers are helping fund the public education system and give them an opportunity for upper class mobility and to contribute to society. So they have to go into the community and pick up trash, or volunteer for an after school daycare or something like that. Like, they have to go do something. And I think that component is desperately needed in higher education, because there are a lot of people coming out of undergraduate and graduate education with the sense that they just picked up this asset and they're going to go make bongo bucks doing something, and they don't give a shit where they go. They don't give a shit about whatever ruination the university system left in its wake by sitting down in a school or sitting down in a town and kind of warping and distorting the city around the university at the expense of everybody else. So there needs to be this, like, communal mindset that gets fostered from the very beginning in higher education, to where people are coming out of it with a more community focused approach to things. And in doing that, right, especially if they're being forced to go out into the community to talk to other people, they will be not always stuck in their labs. They won't be trapped in the ivory tower, and they'll hopefully have some social skills at the very least to go along with the education that they got. And I think if you have a combination of everything Professor Q probably told you, right, this cross-disciplinary training when they're in the classroom, and this interaction with the human beings outside of the classroom, that's going to be I think, a really good combination for how to train a better scientist, because there are so many aspects of life, universe, and everything that people don't get. Right, the institutions only churn out good lab rats. They don't churn out good people all the time. And I think there's a distinguishing factor between those two things, and we're starting to see it now. Right, you can look at a scientist yelling on COVID Twitter right now, and oh, why isn't anybody listening to me? Oh my God, everybody's believing in the conspiracy theories. Well, who are you? Why do people want to listen to you? Why should anybody listen to you? Who the fuck are you? Just because you have a degree doesn't mean people are going to take you seriously, right? You have to build relationships with other people. Twitter's not the greatest tool for that, but still, like, you have to be part of communities. You have to be known and respected by other people for them to really take you seriously.
Yeah, and with the like with Twitch, you have to bring a certain aesthetic, right? Like, you have to be good to listen to, you have to be interesting, you have to be entertaining, you have to do all these things. Have you found, I'm going to assume yes, but I'm going to let you elaborate, but have you found that Twitch is a good medium to communicate these kind of things?
I think it can be. I definitely think it's had value. And I know, a couple of months ago, I was actually kind of having a small little existential crisis about this in my head. And I was like, is it really worth even doing this? It was right after TwitchCon, right? Because I was going through all of the people after TwitchCon who tested positive for COVID, and all the people at TwitchCon who deliberately showed up with COVID and who got on planes with COVID on purpose just so they could go to TwitchCon. Like, it was a disaster zone. And so now it's kind of just like sitting there and thinking to myself, like, have I really made that much of a difference? Like, I know not all of Twitch is watching me or listening to me, not even close, but at the same time, like, even people that I talk to, like, their COVID precautions weren't the most consistent. So it's like, how much of an impact am I actually making? But I kind of sat down and tried to take stock of, like, the community that I built and people who do frequent my stream, to be like, okay, these people are here for a reason. And I got some feedback from other folks that essentially added up to, I'm still a very valuable resource that does the service of going through all of the data and all of the new findings and trying to sort of give them a 411 to be like, all right, here's what's going on now, here's what you should do, or this new vaccine is out, here's the deal with it, here's what's different, here's what's not, here are the risks and benefits of things. There's definitely still an aspect of that Twitch has definitely been valuable for. And broadly speaking, right, this is the chicken or the egg question, right? How do you build a community without a following from somewhere else? And ultimately, I think at the very beginning, I just had a couple of my friends, AFK while I was talking to the void, just so I wasn't at zero. And that did help a little bit, unironically. But once you had organic participation, then people slowly started churning in. And it definitely helped to kind of throw the credentials around a little bit. That's kind of another reason why Twitch definitely at least has worked for me. But I definitely acknowledge that credentialism is not the end all be all of everything, and I do kind of discourage its invocation in most contexts and circumstances. But still, like, that's kind of what helped my usage of Twitch get off the ground. I think by contrast, there are a lot of hogs and several anti-vaxxers, some of which are prominent, that do also have credentials, who do use the platform. And they definitely have audiences. I know at least one, I think his audience, it's always been bigger than mine, but he's been like falling off pretty hard, at least from his viewer counts and how dead his chat is. So it's like, I think so long as there's kind of this organic discussion and community building that's being formed, then yes, Twitch absolutely is a very useful medium by which to communicate. I think it also helped that I've been more or less born and raised on the internet. I was taught how to play video games by my older brother very early in life. I spent a lot of time online as a kid, and so I think by virtue of that, right, I'm very used to speaking memes and shit posting. Like, I'm used to communicating in that way, kind of code switching into more internet friendly speak. And that, I think, is kind of almost like a signal. I don't want to necessarily say virtue signal, because it's not really virtuous to be terminally online, but it's a signal to at least other people in the space that it's like, hey, you're not just some like weirdo carpetbagger or some weird strange academic who just like showed up here because they are doing something for an assignment or they think that they're hot shit, right? Like it's a sign that I'm one of these people, right? I'm an internet user. I'm a chatter on other streams. I'm a consumer of content on Twitch as well as a content creator. So that all of those things I think kind of came together. And then people like, shout out to Read and Rap the GOAT. People like Read and Rap do and help kind of cross pollinate between different communities. And I think this one being one of them. So it's definitely a good thing that there are passionate chatters to kind of connect people and make things happen. That's unequivocally like necessary for the use of Twitch to communicate science. Because obviously, like, okay, cool. If you build a little organic audience, then awesome. But like, who else are you talking to? Like, you want to be trying to expand your reach however you can. That's why I wound up, stepping into that panel last week because I saw some of the things being talked about were borderline insane. So I said, okay, there are probably people watching this who could benefit from like a little bit of intelligence and not so much brain rot. So it's like, I kind of forced my way in there and tried to, push back against some things that I thought were pretty caustically insane. So, Twitch definitely, I think, also provides an opportunity almost to get into other people's spaces, right? The panels that people have where they're actively soliciting other people to be in there. Like that's another opportunity to get in there and be like, okay, no, here's how things actually are. And if someone's saying something crazy, okay, here's why you're wrong. I've had to do that on Prime Kai several times just because they keep talking about infectious disease related issues. So it's like, okay, come on, you guys, like people are going to get hurt if you keep letting crazy people get on here and say crazy things. Like, stop. You need to stop. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity on Twitch to do it. It's not the only platform to communicate, right? A lot of academics are, at least I should say pre-Elon, they were heavily using Twitter for that. And Twitter does have good uses and utility as well. But Twitch, I think, is unique. One, because of the live interaction. Two, because of the fact that you can cross-pollinate communities. Three, because you can actively go into other communities to have discussions. And then four, I think most importantly, because you provide a space and a centralized point where people can come to you as a resource.
Yeah, and I think one that speaks to what you were saying earlier about going into the community. For you, it's the internet community. You are of those people, so you can speak to those people.
Right.
And like we all know the long format YouTube video of like an hour is great for getting across like particularly complex points or what have you, but like based on who watches Twitch, I know that like unless you're like Zach App, not a lot of people are hanging out for these long form videos, like I know Gremlo, for instance, if it's over like 10-15 minutes, he's probably not going to watch it on stream, like because he understands the nature of his community and things like that. So I feel like the interactive nature where you can, we're going to talk about a thing and then I'm going to talk to chat and then we're going to have some jokes and then go back. And that circular kind of thing keeps people active and involved.
Oh yeah, 100%. But definitely nobody wants to show up to like listen to a monologue. Like that's not why they're there. And I'm sure you've seen it in all sorts of chats too. But if people are here for a specific question, they'll just show up and regardless of what's going on, they'll ask the question. Like they just want to get what they want to get out of it.
Right.
And of course, the long form, breadtuber video essay content is not the best for that. It definitely like, it's interesting you brought up Grem as a contrast. I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's something that I'm kind of noticing on the more like academic flavored side of things is that there's just an absolute shortage of any video content at all. Like everything is an article, everything is a Twitter thread, everything is a paper. It's like, can somebody speak to me so I can rest my voice just for once? Like it would be really nice for more academically flavored video content. And I know I still probably need to DM James, but I'm trying to, I guess, be the change I want to be in the world and start to make more of that myself. Just because there's a lot of topical issues right now to talk about, right? There's the whole zero COVID China thing. There's a lot of race science stuff that needs to be addressed. There's I think there was that like insane ProPublica article about like 5G giving people cancer or something. There's like a whole variety of like academically flavored things that exist, and right now they aren't being covered in that kind of content. Like they're just relegated to a Twitter thread, and that's that. So I think what would also be really good for more intellectually minded people would be to create that shorter form content, right? You have to practice your science communication skills. You have to distill things without dumbing it down into that nice 10 to 15-minute window. Get a point across, get the essentials out, and beyond that, it will be what it will be. But people need to do it, right? It's kind of a symptom of a broader problem that academics point out a lot of issues with conspiracy theories and whatnot, but it's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? And there's never any answer to it. So I guess I'll start working on that to whatever ability that I can. But obviously there's going to need to be more folks than me who need to pick up the fight and actually like participate in the struggle against this bullshit. And it's going to be even more important because we've got a new Republican House who is going to hold hearing after hearing after hearing about COVID and everything else, and they want revenge for the fact that they had to go get a COVID vaccine. Like there's always going to be this anti-science agitation in this country. I think more people need to actually push back, and the more people that do it, it makes it an easier lift. And that kind of shorter form content is a really good way to do that, because you're getting more at people who are vulnerable to that kind of propaganda and agitation, rather than the spreaders of said propaganda and agitation themselves. Like they're not going to be people you really convince. It's going to be people who are confused or who don't know what's going on. If you have content that actually pushes back or is a good resource for people to consume, then you're going to see, I think, less brain rot as that kind of content grows.
And there's a thing in the we who identify as leftist community of meeting people where they are. And I feel like some of the nonsense discourse that's been going on, recently with Vosh and what he's been saying is indicative of that kind of thing where we want people, there are some of us on the left who want people to come to us, right? Like you got to do this and you got to get through these hoops, where really we need to go to them. Like if we're to steal from Christian evangelism, if we're going to minister to the people, we have to go to where the people are, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's been my biggest gripe with academics in response to Elon Twitter is the fact that as soon as Elon took over Twitter, they're like, all right, I'm gone, bye. It's like, wait, excuse me, what? Like, why? You've been a resource for people. People turn to you for takes on the pandemic and other things. Like, why are you leaving? It's like, well, I don't want to give value to Elon Twitter, and I don't want to take the harassment. And that latter part is valid. There's definitely a lot of harassment on Twitter, to say the very least. But like, you as a singular academic are not providing the website value. Nobody goes to Twitter to go like read the latest publication. That's not why people are on Twitter. They're there for memes. They're there for porn. They're there for shit posting. They're there for news updates. Like that's not why people go to Twitter. So, I think if academics want to see things change, they need to be where the people are. And that place is Twitter. Nobody's going to post. Some people have gone to Mastodon, but Mastodon in its current incarnation is not really the most user-friendly thing. It doesn't aggregate content in the same way that Twitter does, and I think for the average person, that's going to be an issue. So, rather than trying to do this juggling everything approach where you're trying to cross-post across every single platform that you can, and then try to respond to all of that, like you're stretching yourself super thin. Like Twitter's where the most people are. That's still where the most people are, and if it's more caustic, okay, I don't blame you for like taking a step back from that a little bit, but you have to then just practice more self-care, more info security, and probably more caution needs to be invoked when you're interacting. But it still shouldn't stop you. Like that should not be an obstacle. It might be an issue that needs to be dealt with, but shouldn't remove any and all desire to talk about science with other people.
Right.
And I genuinely think a lot of academics were on Twitter to do that just because they felt almost like forced, like it was a necessity. And now that they have a convenient out, like, oh, well, Elon Twitter is just so caustic, I can't be here anymore. They're taking that out as much as they can so they don't have to do the work. And you can look at that in perhaps the largest scale possible. The former director of the NIH, Francis Collins, he was like, yeah, man, this misinformation problem, I never expected it. I'm shocked that people didn't get a vaccine that's safe and effective. Somebody should do something. And then he retired. It's like, well, you're the most storied scientist in the country's history. You've been the head of the biggest research entity in the country for like 20 something years. You're quitting because of that? Like, bro, come on. If you're sending such an awful signal to the institution that like this is a problem that will never be overcome, when it's absolutely solvable, but people have to do the work. And this is really just my gripe with a lot of folks these days, is people don't want to do the actual necessary work to get that done. Right? It's not a nobody wants to work anymore at my burger flipping minimum wage restaurant. It's the academics who are definitely getting paid more than enough money to live and they're comfortable. They don't want to do the work to solve the problems that make them bitch constantly, and they find it easier to just bitch constantly, and nobody wants to hear that. So that's why I'm trying to yell at them to be like, no, shut up. If you're not going to do anything, then shut up. Like, pick one. You either do the work or you shut up. And nobody really ever has a good response to that, because they start to realize that like, wait, maybe I'm part of the problem too.
Right.
Like, if they pitched in, the problem would be less awful than it is.
I don't know if you in your life have ever been to a bar on the last night it was open, and they basically like have to kick you out, turn the lights on, take all the alcohol away, that kind of thing. But that I have, and that's how I feel about Twitter. It's like, I am not leaving until they kick us all out.
Yeah, and that's what I told other academics. I was like, ride this thing till the wheels fall off, man. Like, make them ban you. Right. Make them ban you. Make them get rid of you. Like, you are the thorn in their side. If they want to curate a right-wing conspiracy-friendly space, okay, you are the thorn in their side. You get to be the harasser for once. It's just you're not harassing people on the basis of a protected class status. You're doing it with correct information to get them to stop spreading insane bullshit. Mm-hmm. So you can actually be the one pissing off other people because you're correcting them. And I think that, at least for me, I won't speak for anybody else, but I kind of like that. I kind of like being, catching a little bit of smoke sometimes. When Buffalo Bill safety Damar Hamlin collapsed, I preemptively was like, okay, come on. It's not because of the COVID vaccines. The vaccines didn't do that. What are you doing? Stop. Like, anti-vaxxers can fuck off. And then I got all sorts of smoke from random Twitter weirdos. One of them called me anti-football, so I'm currently on my anti-football arc. But it's like, you have to say these things. And somebody else in that Twitter thread was like, who are you even talking to? You're arguing with ghosts, man.
Right.
And then I had to go screenshot all of the people on the hashtag died suddenly hashtag to be like, what, do you think all these people were making it up? And then all the big names started weighing in. You got Charlie Kirk, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got Dr. Drew, you got the typical gamut of anti-vax conspiracy theorists with blue checks. Like, they all said the same thing. And all of them were like, oh my God, I can't wait to see the vaccine killed him on autopsy. And it's like, the dude's alive now. He's off the ventilator. He's conscious and watching his team play. Like, that goes to show you just how insanely unserious and not credible the crazy people are. But it's like, who is spreading that fact? Who is saying that like all these armchair cardiologists were wrong? Who is letting people know that like, hey, Hamlin's just fine. It wasn't due to the vaccines. His medical team's taking care of him. And if you want to speculate on what cardiac event did it to him, leave it to the professionals, especially if they're actually part of his medical team. So, it's one of those where it's like, okay, if there was somebody there to just stick a thorn in the sides of all the crazy people on Twitter and direct them towards good information, then that's a resource that can be spread. That's content. That's a Twitter thread that can be shared. Like, you kind of have to take advantage of that virality. You kind of have to catch some smoke to do it, but it's something that can be taken advantage of. That's what I do sometimes with tweets. I'm like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but here's the message. Use this tweet, take it, give it to whoever you want. right? I'm totally willing to like catch smoke on certain issues just so I can correct a narrative that's definitely wrong. I know with the Damar Hamlin thing, I tweeted out that thread for that purpose, and I gave it to other people in Discord. I was like, okay, dude, like I know you're, seeing a bunch of anti-vaxxers on this other website that are blaming the COVID vaccines for that. Take my Twitter thread that has information as to what's probably actually happening, give that to them, and you can send people to me if they have more questions beyond that. So having people get into the thick of it is something that's necessary. And like you said, if that's what makes them ban you, then so be it. But you have to do it for them to do that. Doesn't you're just taking up a username at that point on Twitter if you're here with a blue check and a PhD after your name and you're not doing fucking anything.
As an aside, I'm not sure if you're aware, but he was actually released from the hospital today and he's on his way home, which is good.
Let's fucking go. Yeah. And that's a credit to the first responders on the field who got his heart started twice on the field in the span of 10 minutes. Like those people did the proper medically correct thing, and they did so incredibly quick because that's what they're trained to do. Like where's the thanks for those people? Where's the discourse about how those people busted out a defibrillator which figured out that his heart rhythm was either off or completely gone and applied the correct shocks? Like, this is a very scientific medical event that just happened on national TV. Where are the academics being like, okay, folks, here's probably what's going on. Here's what happened. Here's what I saw. Like, I know there was one YouTube video from an MD that was circulating around, and that was a good thing. And then there were a couple of threads from like emergency doctors that would be like, well, if, this is my patient, here's what I would be thinking of to like rule out and that kind of stuff. But it's like I can count the number of people saying that on one hand compared to, everybody blaming the COVID vaccine. That's like hundreds of people. So there's definitely a disparity between the crazy people and the smart people. Like, more smart people need to be agitating on the platform.
And I think that speaks, especially like what you're saying about academics on Twitter. It speaks to something like Levelhead talks about with local government. Professor Q has mentioned it with local government and school boards and things like that. Is the concession of these spaces, like where somebody just tried to come in and they're globally banned, so that's cool. We need to not concede those spaces just because they are difficult. We need to, occupy those spaces and give that kind of pushback. And it's not for everybody. Not everyone needs to be out there on the front lines doing it. But if you have that capability, you're almost obligated to do it because you don't know who else might, right?
Yeah, and I think some less than credible people who still have degrees have been saying exactly what you said on Twitter, and I fear like that's a really good message coming from some of the worst people. But like, the message itself is great. Like, you absolutely need to not cede spaces to conspiracy theorists, right? There is a value in having public facing intellectuals and credentialed people, because they carry a lot of weight and they are very well equipped to push back against a fair amount of bullshit, especially as it pertains to whatever their expertise is. If I wasn't, kind of a carpetbagger because I'm just here for school, then I would really start like digging down and showing up to, city council meetings and stuff like that. But that's definitely something I would like to do, beyond that, once I actually like find a place to kind of settle down. Once I'm done with my degree, like that's going back to that notion of community participation is, actually becoming a part of that. And that goes back to what Professor Q and Levelhead, I think, have undoubtedly said, right? City council meetings, school board meetings, those places are places that genuinely have impact on communities. People have power that they wield over others. And if they're not using that power with, good scientifically grounded understandings of the situations that they're trying to control or otherwise manipulate, then bad things are going to happen, right? It could be as simple as trying to find clean drinking water. It could be something about, vaccine mandates and pandemic precautions. Like there's a lot of impactful things that happen on smaller levels, but there's that giant sense of communal disconnect, right? We're all, main characters of our own movie. We're all rugged American individualists trying to, rough it and make it our own way. And, we're not islands unto ourselves. We have to realize that we cohabitate and live with other people in neighborhoods, communities, cities, towns. Like we all kind of have to band together to get that class consciousness actually on track. And I think science is a pretty good rallying point for uh, tools or times issues rather where it's relevant, right? You can point to things that have a much higher likelihood of actually being true, and then galvanize people to that cause, and then you can use that as a cudgel in local government, city council, school board meetings. Like you can say like, no, actually, here's a bunch of studies, and crazy person who just spoke is ignoring all of this or something like that, right? You can at least use science to help make people look like the grifters that they may or may not be, right? If they're disrespecting it or if they don't actually obey it or follow through with it, then you can hit them over the head with it metaphorically. Like you can point to all the people on the school board if they don't do mask mandates or vaccine mandates. It's like you're content with possibly maiming children. Like we're here about grooming and protecting the children. What about this virus that's continuing to spread for the past 3 years that could be affecting child development, giving kids long COVID, making them less able to perform in school and athletics? Like, what about that? Right? You can out people for not really truly giving a shit or for being outright crazy. And science is a really good way to do that. But again, it requires people to go forth into those spaces, as Levelhead and Professor Q have said.
And there's a thing there of where when we concede those spaces, that person who has the decision making power in that space, whatever it may be, is only going to hear that one side. And so they are going to assume, by just the way that people are, that is the thought of the community at large. So just by giving a little bit of pushback, they know that there is someone out there on the other side, and they may feel that way, but they're not going to fight this fight on their own. So having someone that they can go, okay, well, these people over here disagree with you, and they are also my constituents or what have you, is going to lend them the support that they need to continue to fight the fight that they might not do otherwise.
Exactly. I think that notion definitely works on smaller, more local levels, because if we're speaking like a federal, then that's a whole different ballgame because they don't really listen to constituents. I think we can all see that, but yeah, I think what you really speak to is the idea that like if the smart people are watching or if they're there, it makes people think twice. I know on Twitch, with the Prime Kai panels, I think after my third, forceful insert on there to be like, dude, come on, stop spreading bullshit about monkeypox. Like some panelist was saying something ridiculous. So I had to be like, okay, come on. Like if you have questions, ask the questions. Let's not spread misinformation here. So I think after that, like there was definitely a marked shift in the kinds of topics that were covered on that panel, and very few of them, if any, actually started pertaining to biology, because it's not a good look if the scientist has to interrupt his day and interrupt his lab work to come onto your twitch.tv panel to correct you. Like I think there's value in knowing that there are people who are watching and who are actively interested in making sure that the things being said are not psychotic. And that approach definitely, I think, applies to the local level, whether it's school board, city council, local government. Like if they know they're going to be outclassed and consistently embarrassed by somebody, especially if they have a degree, like if they continue to brute force and go forward with whatever insane bullshit that they're doing, they're going to look even more unfavorable with the public than before. So it's really kind of almost a win. It's like a win, half win situation for a smart person going into that space, right? Because even if bad thing happens, you've at least now like convinced other people that the people who made the bad thing happen are truly the ones responsible and not whatever scapegoat or other bullshit reason was given.
Right.
So I think that has ramifications for accountability, and that is a concept and I don't want to call it like an institution, but like it's a cornerstone of what needs to be happening. Like we need accountability kind of all around. Whether it's political circles, academic circles, like people need to be held to account for their bullshit. So that's kind of why it's good to take up that fight, is because science, academic information, like that can all be very readily used to stick accountability where it needs to go.
And like we I mean, just like I can find it difficult to, watch panels, but I appreciate people like you and Corey who are there on these panels on that front line. I still haven't watched this one that apparently almost ruined you. Like you looked pretty rough afterwards, but like apparently it was rough.
Good.
No, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was less like rough and more just like my interlocutor was screaming at the top of her lungs, and I could not turn down her volume low enough, so it just gave me a headache. Like, I think the reason why I looked beat up afterwards is because like my head literally hurt because I was being screamed at. So afterwards, like I was totally fine to go back into my normal content and do whatever it was I had planned for that day. Just had to do so with a headache, so that's probably why I looked a little tired afterwards.
Yeah.
But like, I went in there and I caught that smoke, right? I in some capacity did that to myself. Like I put myself in there. So, it's not like I can, be totally blameless in that situation because I was the one who hopped on the panel. But, obviously that doesn't justify the kind of response that I got.
Sure.
And I think like again, that's kind of what I was going back to insofar as like the forceful pushback notion, because a lot of people who spread misinformation and lies, they are not here in good faith. And when they actually have either some of their own tactics to use against them, or they have somebody who's not going to be susceptible to their bullshit actually call them out, then they start yelling and pounding the table, right? As that old adage goes. So that was that's more or less what happened. So if you do go back and watch it, I recommend not using headphones because that's what gave me the headache.
Right.
So be very conscious of your volume.
How long have you been on Twitch? How long have you been doing this?
Oh Christ, I'm not sure if I've even been keeping track. I want to say I'm probably approaching the 2-year stream anniversary. I think it's been about 2 years. It's somewhere around there. I'm probably like a couple months short if I remember correctly. I could be misremembering that a little bit. I'm sure there's like a website where I could go check, but it's approaching 2 years, somewhere around there.
And like eventually you're going to get your PhD and move on to something else. Do you see yourself continuing to do this for at least as long as you can, or as long as it seems like you're fighting the good fight and that people are following you or listening to you or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested. I think a part of it's obviously going to be contingent on like, what job I wind up getting afterwards. But, at the very least, like being on here for as long as I have has communicated the necessity of the work to me. I think this is lived experience that's shown me that like the online community is a community worth being a part of, even if there's, a stupid amount of brain rot in other places. It's definitely worth actually being where the action is, because a lot of the things that happen today happen online. Like you don't have, at least not yet, you don't have crowds of anti-vaxxers trying to do an insurrection on the NIH or something like that. Like they're not storming literal laboratories, at least not yet. So a lot of what gets people to that point happens online. So whatever I can do to push back against that, I'll absolutely do. I kind of jokingly say I don't know how serious he was about this, because if he actually is serious, then I might take him up on this. But I know Dr. Neuro, the CDC employee, who is also a Twitch streamer, who I talk with a bunch.
Mhm.
Again, I don't know if he was joking when he said this, but he said, when you're getting close to graduation, let me know what your plans are. And I think that was a kind of an intimation that like, yeah, I might have somewhere to plug you in at CDC. So if that's genuinely an opportunity that lies before me, then like, yeah, I'm going to fucking jump on that. Are you kidding me? Like I'm going to make CDC great again hats and wear them every day to work. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to take that opportunity. I'm going to jump on it. But whether or not I stay on the platform after I get my PhD, I think is contingent on what my employment looks like. But I will fight hand, tooth, and nail to make that happen. I think, like you said too, there's definitely an aspect of like, okay, is this worthwhile? But I think broadly speaking, like there's going to be a need for more people doing this kind of work as time goes on, because the world as it stands right now will continue to throw bullshit at people, whether it's another pandemic, whether it's the effects of climate change bearing down. Like there's always going to be some sort of academic and scientifically flavored thing happening. Like there's a new drug that just got approved for Alzheimer's. Like that's not really pandemic related at all, but people were kind of like coming to me like, yo, dude, have you heard about this? Like, what do you think about this? So, I get a lot of like just biology, medically flavored stuff, and people coming to me for that, and I'm happy to be whatever resource I can for the kind of questions and the little like bits of glue that are needed to kind of like really seal people's understanding around good information. So if I can be that piece for even a couple of people, then I'm more than happy to do that work. Just because sometimes that's all it takes, right? It only takes one person to super spread. It only takes one person to start a rumor that warps and distorts itself via the game of telephone that gets played, and a lot of that happens online. So I'm happy to do the work and I enjoy it. But I think it's enjoyable because there is a community, there is a want. So as long as there is a want, I will be there. I think if that want either goes away or migrates, then okay, I'll follow it. If it's not on Twitch, then okay, we'll see where that is. But I have a feeling Twitch is still going to be around, even if they fuck up with the big streamers and a lot of them migrate to YouTube. Then I can try and copy paste everybody on YouTube best I can. If Twitch somehow goes under, but considering it's backed by Amazon, it's almost like it's too big to fail in the sense that the platform itself will crumble. It's more, the big fish in the pond if they decide to migrate. So I think that's going to be the bigger, like short-term determinant of where I go. Because if big streamers all migrate to YouTube, then to YouTube I go. But if most of the big fish are still here, then of course I'll stay here.
And I think there's been some extrapolating a whole lot of fuzzy details, like that there's like a push by Amazon or at least the Twitch powers that be to kind of revert back to like the gaming and everything else as its primary go-to, as opposed to like just chatting. Which, like, if anyone's listening at Twitch, I think is a huge mistake on your part, because you could literally replace television with a lot of the content. You should be like creating creator funds to have, like, people could do acting, right? Like, I've got this green screen behind me, and if I moved some things around and got a couple other people and we studied some lines, we could do a show, like a sitcom. And for people, for the chat, and for anyone who's thinking about getting into streaming, like, you don't just have to do this talking head thing. You could, like, if you don't feel there's enough inclusion in whatever community you represent on television, maybe make your own, right? Like, you have that opportunity. Like, it requires, say, 3 or 4 people to do a like mini sitcom kind of scenario. You could do that, Do you disagree, or
yeah, I think like kind of like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like punditry or commentary. That's not something that's super exclusive to the types of content that people can create on Twitch. And I definitely would agree with pretty much everything you said. Like, there's more potential than legacy media, I think, on a platform like this. And they absolutely could take creators, especially someone like Will Neff, someone who has like formal training in like improv, someone who's like been a comic, who has like a million ideas, who's like helped write movies and shit, like somebody who knows what they're doing, like him. You could absolutely draw people to the platform because they have the chops to create content that people would actually tune in and watch, right? There's just a massive shortage of like good content right now. I mean, I would firmly say that, like, Netflix is canceling things left and right. The frequency of originals that they're coming out with is decreased, and the ones that they do come out with, the good ones get canceled and the bad ones are always around. Like, that's kind of the fucking way it goes right now. But like, Amazon's kind of branching into its own originals. Like, they've got The Boys is one of their biggest ones, but those are more like your typical Hollywood style productions. That's not the only form of content that exists. Right? You could absolutely juice up your bigger streamers, your partnered Twitch streamers, the ones you've vetted and of, to create content that you could then even stick on Amazon Prime or something for other people to see, and pump it up in your algorithms when people are browsing for dumb shit to buy on Amazon. Like, there's absolute massive potential, and it really, I think, speaks to almost like I don't want to use the word like generational, because I think being a boomer is more of a mentality rather than a birth year. But there's just a lot of boomer minded people at Amazon, and even probably in the upper echelons of Twitch, that don't realize what they have. And if they don't figure that out, then they're losing out on money. I mean, look, if you want to approach it from the purest, most capitalist sense, they're losing out on so much fucking money.
Yeah.
Whether it's ad revenue, whether it's people subscribing for the content, like there's a lot of money to be made there, and they're literally riding a cash cow. They don't realize it, and they're about to ride it off a cliff if they keep mismanaging the contracts and the ad requirements for the bigger streamers. Like, it's not all just about advertisement. And that's another aspect of Twitch that's kind of onerous right now, is like advertising and the use of ad block and stuff like that. Like, people get discouraged from watching new streamers because they show up and they get ass blasted with like 3 minutes of ads. Like, right. Of course, nobody's going to want to stay on your platform if you show them nothing but ads. It's the first thing they see. So that doesn't have any impact on the streamer, but that's a Twitch issue.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's one of the things, like, I have pre-rolls on because I don't want people to catch ads during the thing, because I'm not, the most I can expect out of this and hope for out of this is that it like self-funds to buy new equipment and things like that. But like having a better way to integrate the ads into the content, not be 3 minutes long, have some choice over the ads, I think would go a long way. For chat, like, especially, see, I grew up at a time when TV still flew through the air and hit antennas and shit. So I used to watch this show called Cat's Pajamas, and I got exposed to like the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Honeymooners. If you Google those, these are like 3 to 4 people doing a little thing. You could create a similar type, again, sitcom in your own space, in a small space with a couple of your friends. And that kind of content could be integrated with the ads that they want you to run, because if you watch old school sitcoms, there are ad breaks. So you could do that kind of thing. And I feel like it's a natural progression of this platform, and I feel like Amazon knows, because Thursday Night Football is on Twitch, right? You can watch the game with a chat, and and so it's like right there where we are that close.
Yeah, honestly, like I know they I think it was the football deal went to YouTube. If I remember correctly, there's some sort of big like football contract thing that went to YouTube. But it's the same principle. You're there in a chat with other people talking about the game. Like, it's the digital equivalent of being in the seats. Like, you get the camera angles and you get the other fans to yell at and rip and poke fun at and talk shit to via the chat. Like, it's a form of interaction that boomer-minded people are not familiar with, and that's probably why they don't understand the value, just because that's not what they did growing up, right? They're still used to, you subscribe to NFL Network for $100 a year and you get the Game Pass, so you could watch all 32 games at once or something, where it's like nobody's trying to watch every single game at once. They want their team, or maybe a couple, or if they're like running a fantasy football league, and that's it. Like, they want what they want out of it. They don't want it all. Like the subscription style, where you're buying hundreds of cable channels, or a year pass for just watching one single team every week. Like, that model is outdated, and you're going to lose money off of that if you keep doing it. That's why things like Twitch, YouTube, online streaming is a really good path into the future for a lot of these big corporate entities. And like you said too, like it's a good way to expose other people to other content. Like, I'm sure if they wanted to integrate commercials into the online live streams like they already do, they could absolutely plug something else on Amazon, or some sort of other YouTube special or something like that. Like, they can sort of just advertising a McChicken for $2 like they do all the time. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows what McDonald's is. Why are you running ads? Like, we all know what Burger King is and why we hate eating at Burger King. So like, you can change the kinds of ads that you run. Like everybody, all the talking heads are like, oh, we're going to run more relevant ads. And then it winds up being some, plug for crypto or some shit. Like, no, you can take ads and actually try and plug other content to cross pollinate. Like, it goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, like almost the way Twitch communities cross pollinate and interact with each other is it's a model for how advertisement could work. Like, you're trying to take people consuming one piece of content and send them towards another piece of content that you just made, and then if those people like it, they'll spread the word. Like that is how people have found things in the first place, and that's how they'll continue to find things. It's just, the space is so underutilized, and I think people who are very future minded, who know how to plan and who can try to like anticipate the wants of people better than others, they're the ones who are going to be taking advantage of the space. Like if you look at someone like Dr. Neuro, again, he picked the space because there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of people who benefit. Like he recognized the value, and that's why he spends time on the space. It's just trying to communicate that to a corporate executive is probably going to be nothing short of impossible, and that's why they're going to run themselves into the ground. Like it almost feels like there's a big I feel like there's change in my bones. I don't know how else to describe it, but it definitely feels like there's a lot of legacy stuff that's just going to go under. It's going to shock like a lot of older people, but for younger people, they're going to be like, yeah, of course that's going to go under. Like I spend all my time on Twitch and TikTok. Like, yeah, of course, not watching this fucking show on ABC 7 p.m. or something. I think when people in younger generations start getting these positions of power, then you'll see a shift. But boomers, in terms of birth year, are living longer than they ever have, and the ones in the positions of power are not making good decisions. So those two factors together has kind of extended this period of like, oh my God, they're still clinging to legacy media. Come on, get with the times,
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel the exact same way. It's like that there is a great, I don't want to say wave, but there's a thing coming when, through the natural progression of events, the boomers are out of the way, and to a certain extent, Gen Xers are out of the way, that it will flow into less of the legacy and more of the interactive, on-demand kind of, content like what Twitch is. And so to draw on that, a question that Reed and Rap had earlier, and something that you said, like working for the CDC, is there a space for like Marcus to work at the CDC doing communication and public outreach via Twitch and like have that kind of thing be a thing? And would you do that if you had the opportunity?
I mean, if there was a chance to do that, I would do that and not even think twice. Whether or not there will ever be an opportunity is, I think, still up in the air. I know, I forget how many vaccines ago this was, but I think at least when the third one was out, when they were just telling people to go get a booster, I know they literally had Fauci on a Twitch stream. Like they brought that man onto Twitch along with like two random Twitch partners who did not push him on anything important. They just kind of let him say whatever he wanted. And then, of course, people who were asking genuine good faith questions were getting banned because they were being interpreted as anti-vax. Like I remember that pretty distinctly. So it's like they recognize it's a space, and the older generation incarnation of that is making the rounds on late night TV. The Colberts, the Fallons, the all of those late night shows. Of course, the talking heads like Fauci are going to go there, but that's not where most of the people are, right? They went there first, I think, because older people were more at risk just by virtue of age. But it's like the people who spread it the most are young. Like the age group of 18 to 30 is the most responsible for spread. Like they're the most likely to have shitty minimum wage jobs that have no protections. They're the ones that come into contact with the most people because they work a lot of public facing jobs, retail, food service, warehouse jobs, what have you. Like they're pretty high traffic places. So it's like there needs to be an effort and initiative within a big organization like the CDC to actually have almost like a press briefings, right? They're something kind of equivalent to what happens with the White House and like the White House press corps. Like they need to send somebody out there to field questions from journalists, but on the internet side of things, like how awesome would it be to have another live stream where that person could go on after they're done talking to legacy media journalists who are in the seats with their tape recorders, then hop into Twitch chat and be like, okay, people who are occupying more online spaces, like what do you got for me? Like there absolutely needs to be an effort to do that. And if there was an opportunity to do that, I would happily do that. I think I've been part of a lot of online communities, on and off throughout the years. So I think that would, not to toot my own horn all that much, but I think I'd be a pretty natural fit for that kind of a role, because I can be more recognized by people online, more so than just talking to some pool of journalists. I wouldn't mind doing that either. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's probably the space that I'd excel the most in, is like a formalized online space where people could come and ask questions, and just almost having like office hours. Like that's probably the best analogy I could use to describe it to a more academically flavored agency like the CDC. Like you need average Joe office hours where Susie Q can log on the Twitch chat and just be like, "Yo, dog, is the vaccine making my kid magnetic or something?" Like, as stupid as it might be, that's how people get hooked on conspiracy theories and whatnot. Like if they had somebody to go to just ask these random ass questions, the situation might not be as bad as it is. So yeah, there needs to be a chance, and I would happily do it.
Yeah, and like with what you said about the the Jimmy Fallons and that late night format, that influences what I do here, right? Like where I have on a guest and we talk, and we might talk about a specific topic, or we might just shoot the shit. And I feel like there's a lot more room for that, and like with a guy like Hassan, you can't compete directly with Hassan. He just occupies too big a space, and there's a gravity that kind of comes from that thing. You have to kind of like start carving out your own niche, and that's why I only stream for like 2 hours a day, but I'm here on the regular Monday through Friday. And then like most recently I got into this AI discussion because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication around that, and to genuinely have another person on to speak their piece. And I like to feel that I ask like probing questions, but I'm not here to debate you, right? Like I'm here to talk to you and have a conversation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a distinction to be made between like interviewer and debate pervert for sure. I think you can kind of have like a little mix of it too, because definitely on interviews, like interviewers are there almost to try and hold people accountable, but in a way that doesn't immediately make the other person rip off their microphone and leave the room.
Right.
But like broadly speaking, yeah, I would agree with that notion that like somebody like Hassan is probably not doing enough to kind of like plant the seeds in other communities. Because I remember back when, I don't know how he raids now, because I'm never in his stream at the very end. But it was a meme a very long time ago, at the very least, that he would only raid either Will Neff or somebody with big boobs. Those are the only two groups of people that he would raid with his massive audience and his massive platform. So it's like if he made more of an effort to kind of like plant seeds and grow sort of the Hasanabi extended universe, so to speak. He's done a little bit of that with Frogan, which is good. And then I think he's talked to Carter once or twice, and Carter's growing even more so than he already was. So that's a good thing. But it's like if I can count the number of people that Hassan really plugs, it's not all that many people. So it's like you could really get a giant wave of people saying a lot of leftist shit, getting a lot of people on board in that class consciousness, if he just took more of an inward community-based focus and tried to grow other people. Right now he's just running around allegedly dating other content creators. I won't say who, but pay attention to the Hasanabi relationship space, because that might take off momentarily. But beyond that, it's like, I think his priorities are too much like, I'm a big streamer, so I'm just going to throw my weight around and, yell at XQC and Aiden Ross. Like, okay, I get it. You're trying to be a good role model for young men, and that's not a bad thing. But like, your content is excessively on that now, and it's been that way for like a year. So I really have not watched much of him for that reason. Like, I tune into his YouTube shit for like actual coverage on actual issues, and it's good that he has that. But beyond that, it's like, I don't want to watch a fucking Jubilee video. I don't want to watch you play Valorant. Like, I didn't tune into you for that. And if you want to do that, okay, you can do whatever you want. It's your stream. So like, it kind of goes back to what you were saying, right? Like, there's a space for that kind of like getting to know people, interviewing people, having experts on to talk about technical issues. Like, there's definitely an unoccupied space for that. Absolutely. I think if he took advantage of that, he could be even more beneficial for the people who tune into him. Because I remember there was a time where he only does this now when there's like imminent elections, but before, he would have Ryan Grimm on all the time. He'd have I think Dave Wasserman, or I might be misremembering. Like, he had a bunch of journalists on, David Dayan, another one. He had a bunch of his like journo friends on to be like, yeah, here's what's kind of going on. Like, what's your take? Like, I love that kind of content. That's awesome. So, if he had like, a scientist on, or something like that for whatever was going on at the time, like getting a variety of experts and other noteworthy individuals to give their takes, like that's what made Joe Rogan fucking massive. And that's what he still does to this day. Like, he's got his favorite anti-vaxxers. He's got all sorts of, people to talk about the benefits of elk meat and DMT smoothies. Like he tries to create podcasts that are interesting because he has interesting guests where he can, get high and talk about, why ivermectin's awesome. Like, that's what makes him relatable. That's what makes him down to earth. So I think his reach would be bigger if he did that more in like an outward facing thing, but inwardly, I think he also has a big opportunity to grow communities. And I think the format that you described for like what you do would be a really good way for him to start that. Like, Hassan Stram needs to fucking copy you and your idea, or maybe give you some credit for it. But like, he needs to take advantage of that because he's got a bigger audience. He's streaming like average 50K when Andrew Tate shit's happening or something. Like, that's a bigger consistent average for him than I've ever seen. So he could absolutely weaponize that for good. And I don't think he's doing enough of that right now.
Great. So now Hassan's going to come for my format, and I'm going to be back to 6 viewers again. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, look, we're all about citing sources in academia. No plagiarism, please. You gotta pay homage if you're taking ideas. You got to at least cite a source.
And I will sacrifice my stream for the greater good.
Well, hey, look, if that wound up happening, he should at least take care of you. But $3 million house, Porsche, etc. You know what I mean?
All right, softball question. Is there anything that, like, you, looking back on your early days of Twitch, mistakes that you might have made, or anything like that you would have done differently, anything like that?
That's a good question.
It's my favorite thing that people say to me. That's a good question. I love that. That makes my heart happy.
Yeah, because usually when I say that, it's like, yeah, this is something I haven't actually thought about. So if something you're asking me is making me think, I like that. I think at least like looking back on what I've done sort of in the early days, I think probably what I needed to do better was like network and connect with other streamers, because there are probably some people that I could have like been a greater part of their communities back in earlier times. That's for damn sure. I think maybe from the informational standpoint, in terms of mistakes, I think maybe like, around this time last year, I think I was maybe hyping up the first Omicron a little too much, but that was something that like nobody could have predicted the way it was going to change in terms of its biology. So I think there are a couple of like informational mistakes back then, but if we're talking like early days, like vaccine rollout era, like early 2021, Yeah, I think it's more just networking and being a participant in other people's communities, because that's a big part of what Twitch is about. Is like, you're in other people's chats, and then other people come to your chat. Like it's a two-way street. So I think I probably could have done a better job about that earlier on. I know, like when I first started, there are definitely a lot of other communities that I was already a part of, and that's kind of what also helped get me off the ground in my early days. But I think I could have definitely been more active working like this and sleeping like this just to kind of dodge something worse. But that comes at a cost. This fight against COVID is definitely, I think, Pyrrhic in some respects for me personally, and that's one of them where it makes me less able to be an active participant in other people's communities. Like there's a bunch of other streamers who I want to be in their chat when they're live, but I'm not always able to do that, and I always feel bad. So it's kind of like an ongoing battle, really. It I think was something I could have been better about at the very beginning, and it's still something I could be better about now. So.
Mhm. So besides me, who's your favorite streamer?
Oh, it kind of depends on for what, like kind of like I was alluding to with Hassan earlier, like for the kind of content that you're looking for, you have a guy. Like if we're talking, if you need like a big like what the fuck's happening with this giant political issue take, like Hassan and Grumlow are my go-tos for
Mhm.
sure. And I'm actually I always brag about this. I was one of the people who called Grumlow blowing up. It was me and Read and Rap, because Read and Rap was the one who connected us. And I was like, when I kind of got a sense of like who he was and what he was about, I was like, okay, this dude's fucking going places.
Mhm.
I'm gonna love to see that, and it's been really cool to watch him grow and explode. But yeah, I think for politics, those are my two go-tos. Obviously, for like more medically flavored stuff, with Dr. Neuro, when his streams do happen, because they're increasingly rare, just because he's a busy, overworked person.
Mhm.
That's a good place. I would say, really, hands down, my favorite like streamer overall, it's probably Matt Stupid Art. I've been in that community for a very long time. I found it through a Will Neff raid. He's the dude who like drew all of Hassan's artwork, all of Will Neff's artwork. Like the dude is just an incredibly talented artist, and it's really funny, but also just amazing to watch. Like I think every Friday they play Gartic Phone. It's like an art based game where you draw stuff, but like the dude just draws like dimes. Like he cannot fucking miss when he draws something, even if he's drawing Pickle Rick or a giant frog shitting itself. Like he could
Mhm.
draw really stupid, nonsensical things, but all of the drawings that he turns out are just fucking incredible.
And he's got really
I'm
cute characters, especially his
Yeah.
like mascot character.
Oh yeah, like that's kind of his like community thing. Like if you're a feature in his community for long enough, he'll draw you like your own character of like what he thinks of like you as a person, like what he thinks you would look like if you were turned into a cartoon. And I have one of them. That's my Discord profile picture is his drawing of my like Matt Sona, as he calls them.
Mhm.
Like the dude is just unbelievably talented. He does not get enough credit for being as talented as he is. And I always plug him, but like truly, that's one of my favorite streams to be in. I think second to Hassan, that is the stream where I have the most channel points. So I started on Hassan, and then I wound up actually becoming an art frog. Like I watch a lot of art based streamers. So I think that goes back to what Professor Key was saying earlier about like the lack of interdisciplinary training and experience in science and STEM. It's like this art shit's cool. I suck at it. I can barely draw a stick person, but it's really cool to watch other people be good at it. So that's definitely, I think, my favorite stream.
And you mentioned Grumlow and getting connected through Read and Rap, and like I have now passed the halfway point of the members of Ministry of Science. I just need to get Grumlow and Amber to come out of retirement and do an interview, and then I will have the whole set. But like that format, those conversations, I think Ministry of Science is really like it really speaks to that cross disciplinary thing that we were talking about. Is like there is the biology, Grem has the sociology, and the people that you have on are generally able to do really good communication and a kind of community service. And so like that is one of my favorite shows to tune into. Like Ministry of Science, I think needs more boosting, in my humble opinion.
Hey, I mean, you're not going to see any disagreement from me in that respect. I know, like, it's just one of these things where it's like we're trying to get academics, and it's more difficult to do just because they don't like view it as something where they're going to get an honorarium. Like they don't view it as like a legitimate speaking event. But that's the thing, is like we're trying to get more academics roped into this kind of work. I know one of them who's been with us for a bit now, Reed, who is a grad student at the University of Pittsburgh, who's also, I think, a debate coach. That's how we've kind of been able to have our like branded non-toxic debates. It's because we had somebody else who was like, aware of what Twitch was, watches Twitch streams, was like, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of ready for a breath of fresh air when it comes to debate and discussion on the platform. Let's try and make it more productive and healthy. So that's kind of what Ministry is all about, is like, for the content, trying to make it more consumer friendly, and then for the academics that we can actually manage to get on, trying to be like, yeah, these are just lay people, man. Like tell lay people what you're up to, because we know you're doing some cool shit. We know you're doing some really interesting things, whether it's in the QAnon space or you're a biologist doing some awesome stuff. But it's like, tell these people, like, these are the people paying for your grant money. Like, they deserve to know what you're up to, and they deserve to understand what you're up to. So that's kind of the thinking on both sides of that coin. It's just always difficult trying to get the academic guests on because they're busy. Like we had a heyday in the summer, but that's summer. Like that's when the year is over. So I still have actually a list of people I need to email and reach out to try and get some guests on. But I know for any academics who might even somehow tune into this, on the 24th, we're going to be having our second research showcase, which is hopefully going to be bigger than the first one. But it's basically all of the academics and other knowledgeable people in chat who have either published something or do research or have like valuable insight into like a different field. Like I know Levelhead, I think, was probably going to put something together about some of the journalistic work that he does. We're essentially taking our Twitch community and showcasing the work that they do. So for anybody who comes across this who would be interested in that, feel free to hit me up either on my stream or in Discord. But we're kind of doing it like a little research conference. Like we're having like a Twitch academics research conference, so people can see all the cool shit that's going on in the real world, and going back to telling people online what else is going on. So that's kind of an extension of Ministry, is now trying to do this research showcase, and there will be a prize for gift subs. Right? The Ministry judges will judge the presentations again, and we will give out prizes for first, second, and third with gift subs to their desired streamers. And this time we're actually we're adding in an extra judge who is there to be the bad faith Chud, who will ask one question in bad faith, just to help prepare academics for the real world if they're not already communicating with people, because people will get them twisted and take them out of context constantly. So that's a skill that they need in their skill set, is to be able to handle hostile communication. So we're doing a nice little simulation aspect of that on top of what we normally do with our 10-minute presentations. So Ministry, I think, has a lot of big potential. I definitely think it's been good to get people to tune into a less caustic brand of content. And I think if I ever get to that point where I can genuinely apply for partner and the metrics look good during Ministry, then that I think is a big thing that will be going in my favor, is like they have content that will technically be ad friendly, but also like it's genuinely either entertaining or educational. And that's, I think, more it's less of a risk for them to slap a purple check mark on my name if I ever get to that point. We'll see, but it's not really about that. That's just kind of like an added bonus. If I ever wind up growing that big, then that's a big factor working in favor of me for the reasons that you described.
So we're coming up on the end of my available time. I hope I haven't caused you any headaches, and I hope you feel that
not at all. Quite the opposite.
Well spent.
I appreciate your inside voice. That is something that I very much appreciate. If you ever tune into that from my VOD last week, you will understand my appreciation dearly.
Was there anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't cover, or like?
No, I mean, I think you've asked a pretty good gamut of questions. I think I'll maybe like take this little bit of extra time just to say, and of course, as I normally say, just to stay on message with what I normally say. Of course, there is a new COVID variant going around, so this is everybody's opportunity to get their bivalent booster if they haven't done so already. Yes, they released a new vaccine; it does exist. The government has not done a good job of telling people that it exists. So if you have not gotten your bivalent booster already, I highly recommend it. People are still getting COVID left and right. It's turning out to be so far the second worst wave ever, so it's not like it's over by any stretch. Of course, be sure to wear a high quality mask when you go out into public. Try not to congregate if you can help it, and clean the air, whether it's in your living space, in your workplace, whether you're gathering at other people's places. That's something that you should keep in mind, is that the air is dirty and has a lot of nasty stuff in it, pollutants, viruses, allergens. You should probably clean it just like we clean the water. So that's kind of my usual spiel that I give at the end of everything. It's always worth reminding people, just because again, these things aren't going away, and that's actually what we have to do to live with it. So
yeah, I need to find an excuse to speak with you again, because I had a wonderful time. This is I love doing this, and this is why I love doing this.
yeah, I very much appreciate the time and the space, of course, to come and talk science and streaming. I always say to people who have me on, I'm always grateful for those who are friends to science. So definitely have you on the roster of those who qualify for that. And I was yeah, before you showed me like the prior interviews that you've done, I was like a little unsure of what we were going to be
Sure.
talking about. But then like once you linked that, I was like, oh, okay, this is totally kosher. Let's do it. So yeah, once I knew what I was getting into, I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be awesome. And it definitely followed through, because I think again, you give people space to talk, and I like that, because a lot of interviewers, like I just watched the Andrew Callahan NPR interview, and I was like, that NPR interviewer really had an agenda. Like, Jesus Christ, she was out for blood, and like knives are out. But like, you're a nice, opposite of that, where it's like, yeah, we're here, we're cozy, like we're having a back and forth. So like, I really appreciate the conversational aspect of how you approach these discussions. Again, it's part of what's refreshing about our less caustic corner of Twitch, is that like we all are functional adults and you're good at this. So, it's a nice mix of people and of a discussion. So I definitely enjoyed my time here for sure. Excellent. And we'll definitely make it a point to do it again, especially, if there's something pertinent for me to, agitate about at the end of the 2 hours, like I just did. Maybe next variant I'll make the rounds, and I'll come back here. We'll see what the pandemic does, but regardless, Globus, it's been awesome. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. I look forward to seeing your stream. I look forward to talking with you in the future.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Thanks again for having me on, and I hope you have a good rest of stream, and hopefully a good rest of your day.
Take care.
Adios.
All right, folks. Oh, the old man is tired, but I had a wonderful time. I hope you did as well. There's a button that says follow, and if you like this kind of conversation, you should smash that follow button for more breaking and entering. Nobody hit the follow button. I'm so there we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. Look at the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia.
It's a great little meme and everything.
His name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look at the mail. Well, this name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia,
Make the machine go burn.
Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia.
But yes, this is what I do, at least now, as long as I can line up interviews and people to talk to. Tomorrow, I believe I'll be talking with Universal Discourse about AI, their experience with AI. They did their...
This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look at the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia.
They did their thesis regarding AI, so that'll be an interesting conversation as well. And we always like to talk with UD I think UD has one of like the best stories that they've ever told in this community, and and they're just a wonderful person to talk to, and they know what the hell they're talking about. So we're gonna raid, because I support other streamers. I always raid, and let me just double check. Don't run away. Even if you don't want to like go to the channel, just stick around for the raid. We do the raid. You make me look good. I'm happy. You're happy. Everybody's happy. And then you can go on about your day. It's just a whole thing, right? Like it's just a whole thing. We're gonna raid Paradigm Shift. If you don't know Paradigm, Paradigm is great. Paradigm is my boy. I'm mod for Paradigm. So at the very least, please stick around for the raid, and then go tell your favorite streamer that I said hi, and that they should come and talk to me. Because if you enjoyed this, I want to do more of this, and we can help each other. In the meantime, what I always say is that make sure you're drinking your water, make sure you've eaten something, take your meds if you've forgotten to, and Shoggy loves you. And so do I.